My name is Grant Fritchey. We are here at SQL in the City, streamed, and we are going to keep going. So my session is making your team's code better, or making your team's code better. A lot of ways you could say that. So let's just talk about it. The goals here are really easy. I want to show you some ways to get your code to be consistent. Code is communication. Communication is hard. So let's figure out ways to make communication easier. Let's figure out ways that we can talk to one another through T-SQL that allows us to, communicate in a meaningful way, in a way that gets things across and gets things done. That's all. That's the whole goal of my session, really. But we're going to walk through some stuff. We're going to, prevent some things, fix some stuff, and hopefully you'll like it all. My name is Grant Fritchey. I work for Redgate Software. This is my contact information. If you've got questions after today, please, please, please get in touch. I want to help out if I can. It's my whole goal is to pitch in, help out anywhere I can. All right, so now there are great, great teams in the world. Redgate Software is fantastic. We are, yeah, I know, I'm never in the picture. Don't worry about it. We are amazing people, and I'm including myself in that because after 7 years they haven't fired me. They must like me. These guys do great work, period. I can't say enough good things about the organization. I really can't. And I recognize I get paid by them, but I really like it here. And so they do great work, and they're a great team. And there are other great, great teams in the world. Now, there's a few of you, or some people laughing in the room already, because this is Manchester City Football Club. They are a great, great team. They did a fantastic series of records this year, and just frankly, just one of the best teams in the world. They are wonderful. And some of their players are playing in the World Cup currently, and I'm watching them, cheering them on, each individually, unless they're against the team I was cheering for. But anyway, you get the idea. Now, there are other great teams in the world. Another one of my favorite teams is the Pats. Go Pats. Except this year, they didn't quite cross the line. They were close. So while they are a great team, they could probably use a little help. Now, it could be that you're working on a team that's as great as Redgate Software. It could be that you're working on a team that's as great as Man City. It could be that you're working with the Pats, and you're almost great this year, but you're still great. Or it could be that you're working with these guys. I've worked with these guys. I've been on this team. And it's frustrating. It's difficult. It's slow. It's hard. Communication generally consists of a stick to the head, which is why they're all wearing helmets. And it's difficult, right? It makes things difficult. Friction causes difficulty. A lack of communication means you introduce bad code. Bad code means more friction, lots more yelling and screaming, lots more sticks to the head. It's not an enjoyable team to work with. It's not an enjoyable team to work on. So you want to get to a place where you're working with a smooth process, you're working with a good team, you're communicating well, and you're not trying to bash each other over the head with sticks. And by the way, these sticks actually have pointed ends too. So code has problems. We hit issues with code. And it's not just about communication, it's sometimes just frankly that we don't write it correctly. It is very, very easy to get syntax incorrect. I speak as someone who fat fingers their code on a regular basis. I'm not throwing rocks at you in this case, I'm throwing rocks at myself. It's very easy to get syntax wrong, and that's going to cause problems down the road. Yeah, it may compile that stored procedure that you wrote, but it may still have syntactical errors inside of it. You've got to have issues there. I mean, there's concerns. Also, what else goes wrong with code? Well, we don't write it all in the same way. And some of the choices that we make are, frankly, stupid or painful, or they add to that whole friction thing, which makes it harder for us to communicate one to another. And that lack of communication, that inability to ensure that we are communicating back and forth in a way that we all understand, we all can read the code that we're looking at. You want to open up your code from 5 years ago, and you may still think that you're an idiot because of what you wrote, but you at least want to understand the intent of what was done there. And that requires a readability and practice in your code to arrive at that point. Also, inconsistencies make things so much more difficult. And I know I have people quote it to me all the time, foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I've heard it a million times. But the whole operative phrase there is foolish consistency, not consistency in and of itself. Consistency is a huge, huge good thing. We want to be consistent in how we do things, especially when we're talking code. Coding is hard enough that if we do it in a very inconsistent manner, we alias things one way today and another way tomorrow, we do all kinds of crazy stuff in different manner, in different ways. It's going to reduce the readability, it's going to increase the friction, it's going to make it harder to work together as a team, it's going to make it harder to get things done. And the whole goal here is we want to deliver code. So I mean, really that's all that can go wrong with code, right? I mean, that's just it, those three things. Or, the fact that we don't have standards, that we're not following a common coding practice, that we're not avoiding silly things. We're writing select star in places we really, really oughtn't. We're doing things, with old join syntax. All kinds of stuff that we could be doing. And every bit of that adds to the friction, reduces the ability of the team to get along well. Again, remember, code is communication. Having no standard or having an inconsistently applied standard is nothing but friction. It hurts the team. And we want to avoid that. Pain on the team is pain for us all, and we should stay away from that. Also, if you cannot get at the code, if the code is completely inaccessible, that becomes an issue. And by that, I frankly straight up mean your code's not in source control. Because we want to not only have access to the code, yes, of course, but we want to know who made what change, when, and why. Because without that, it's different. Well, who did it? I don't know. Why? I don't know. Well, it broke my code. Well, tough, or do we need to change it back? I don't know. Well, I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's there. And if no one else fesses up to it real quick, we're changing it back to what I had before because I need my code to work. That's no way to get things done. We have to have mechanisms in place to allow us to do that. And then frankly, coding conflicts. If two of us think that we should do it two different ways, and we do it two different ways, and it causes issues. I mean, it's again, we come back to the fight, the friction, the stick to the head that doesn't allow us to get things done in an effective way. So what should we do? Instead of, sticks to the head, what ought we do? Well, first up, and I've already said it, but I'll say it again, we need to put our code into source control. One of the beauties of source control is the undo function. Frankly, straight up, I've done something to my code, true, wow, that didn't work, undo. And yeah, I know, we could keep copies of the stored procedure on hand so that you run it one way, one the other, run it, go and get it from some other source and bring it down. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do, but having source control, especially if you start using stuff like Git, where you can do local check-in, check-out until you get things right, and then push it up to a bigger source control system, really gives you the ability to control your environment, to control what you do, how you do it, and frankly, undo stuff when you mess it up. And if you're like me, you're going to mess up a lot of stuff. Ask Hugo Cornelis anytime you want to about the number of things I messed up. It just happens. But having the ability to undo it is a great thing. Plus, tracking who did it, tracking what things were done, and then packaging up the changes so that we can mark them and publish them together so that they all go out the door. Also, we want to get more accurate with our code and have our code be more readable. If we get it more accurate, it should be more readable. If we all know what select means in T-SQL, if you type something other than select, not only is it inaccurate, it's less readable. We've got to arrive at a place where we're communicating clearly. And that is about getting and ensuring that we've got a consistent methodology that we're coding. And I'm not talking about silly stuff like where you put your commas. Make your choice, die on that hill if you choose to. I'm not going to say one way or the other what's a good thing. What I am talking about is alias naming, naming other standards, our use of join criteria, how we do the things that we do and where we do those things, and the methodologies we use to put those things together. All of that adds up to a level of consistency or a level of inconsistency that allows us to communicate in a better way. And frankly, we need to come up with standards and have a method to verify those standards and have a method to enforce those standards. And no, I don't mean a stick to the head in this case. I simply mean, look, this is not how we do this. We write this code differently here in this building. Maybe in another building they've decided to do it some other way, and that's fine, as long as it's consistent, communicated, and we're able to see what it is, understand what it is, verify that it's working for us, and if it's not, change it, and then enforce that standard, ensure that every single person is doing the same thing. And hopefully we're all on board with this approach. Everybody okay with that? All right, cool. So let's start at the top. How do we get our code into source control? Well, I work for Redgate Software. I've got a couple of suggestions. Suggestion number one, SQL source control. It works right within Management Studio. So if you're already working within Management Studio, you're already comfortable with Management Studio, you can get your code into source control and off you go. Great methodology. It's good to work with. I'm going to do a demo of it just shortly, and it'll get you down the road towards what you need. The other methodology, which we just saw, was SQL change automation. Now, SQL change automation, different critter. We're coming at it from Visual Studio. We've got some other stuff going on there. It's using a slightly different approach to how it does the code management, but it gets your code into source control and tracks it over time so that you can know who made what change, how many changes did they come, where did those changes come from, what did they change, and can we undo those changes. Both of these tools will allow you for step one of a team-based development and a way to get things done in a consistent fashion, and that's getting your stuff into source control. That is absolutely, bar none, the starting point. After that, there's a lot more work to do. Now, let me put my glasses on because I am old and blind. Here we go. We're going to use a particular database, SQL in the City. And let's create a store procedure. We'll call it, I don't know. Hey, let's call it SQL in the City. Let's call it SQL in the City 2, because I don't know how many of these I've created. All right, so we'll pull some information out of a table. I'm not going to create a massive store procedure here for you. You get the idea. So I'm going to create this store procedure. Now, once that store procedure is created, I've done nothing within T-SQL, right? Nothing up my sleeves. This is normal T-SQL functionality. But if we go over here to our database, you're going to notice, no, I'm not going to rename the database. That would cause problems. You'll notice that that database is green, whereas all the other databases are gray. That is an indication that that database is checked into source control. And we can then, from there, take a look at and populate it with data, view dependency diagrams, document it, commit changes to source control. Hey, didn't we just make a change? Yes, we did. Let's commit changes to source control. So it's going to go to our source control system. In this case, I'm using Git locally, connected up to a GitHub out on the internet. And I'm going to be able to track my changes and see what's going on over time. And so as you see, we've added a store procedure, SQL in the City 2. You guys saw it. You already saw what it was and how it worked. Hang on, let me just hide that so we get more of a complete view. So this then is all the changes, and if we want to mark the changes, we can, and we can commit those changes. And off it goes. So now that's checking everything into source control, and it's doing it all on the fly. It's extremely simple. The only thing that I did wrong there was I did not type a comment in before I checked in my source control. That is bad, bad practice. Why? Well, why? Because I didn't explain what change I made and why I made it. That's something you put into source control so you can track it over time. So first bad practice that I did that you guys would want to document with your team to ensure the team is communicating in a better way. Everybody cool with that? Awesome. Let's keep going. Great. Oh, yeah, demo. Huh. Cool. So the next thing that we talked about that we want to get to in order to make our team function better, and that is accurate T-SQL, making sure that T-SQL is accurate, making sure it's correct, making sure it's not broken, wrong, and weird. Now, it goes way beyond code completion. Now, there's a certain level of code completion inside of Management Studio. Hard to say much more good about it. There's a little bit there, and it kind of works a little bit. But it doesn't do enough. It doesn't do nearly enough, and it's very hard to access. When we talk about code completion, we mean it to complete what you're typing as you're typing it in a real-time fashion to assist you in moving down the road faster and accurately. So that we get not simply a table name or a column name, but we get the select keyword. We get the from keyword. We get the where keyword. We also get full syntax. And by that I mean it knows what a backup command looks like, that it knows other types of commands and puts them together in a meaningful fashion. And it goes way, way beyond simply defining table or column, which is cool stuff, don't get me wrong. I want it to help me with table and column. I want it to give me accurate table and column names so that I've got those things in my hands as fast as possible, yes. But I also want help remembering all the T-SQL syntax because I'm not that bright. I don't remember all that stuff, but I've got T-SQL there to help me out. I'm sorry, SQL prompt there to help me out. So let's go to our demo screen and take a look at this. I'm going to use a different database for this bit. There we go. So I could show you typing, and I already did actually when we created the store procedure. I showed you it finding a table for me and laying all that stuff out, and that's all fine and good. But what about, oh wait, execute. Yeah, I'm going to use execute. That's cool. USP get, well, there's a whole bunch of get. Now I could type W, or hang on, USP W. I didn't type get. I didn't type G. I didn't type get. I typed W, and it skipped over and found the store procedure that I mentioned in anyway. Why? Because that's the only store procedure that's USP with a W in it. You don't have to type out everything, and you don't have to type it all in the perfect order. You can bounce around just a little bit, and it will track down the objects for you. Cool. So it found my store procedure for me, but that's not all. Yeah, it in fact put out both the parameters this store procedure needs to execute. It put out the data types that those are, and it provided me with default values. Now, I may not want those default values. I get it. That's fine. Change them. But they're there. And it's laid out correctly. Unless we're doing in-memory store procedures, which ordinal is the right approach, these store procedures in every other place, passing in a parameter value name and a parameter value is the right way to get it done. It's correct, it's syntactically correct, and it's accurate and clear. And right, communication is code, code is communication. We want to have clarity. And so having the parameter names gives us clarity. I'm looking at start product ID is equal to and at check date is equal to. Done. That's great stuff. It gets better. What if I do want to back up a database? Now backup, B-A-C-K-U-P, right? Yeah, 7, no, hang on. Math is hard, B-A-C-K-U, 6. Backup. Spelling's hard too. B-A space. Instead of 6 characters, I type 2. D space. Instead of how many? 2, 4, 6, 7 characters, I typed 1. What database do we want to back up? AdventureWorks. 2. I'm going to type both letters. It's easier for me. Disk. Now, I typed about 6 characters to get this 20 some odd character command. A backup database, AdventureWorks to disk. It knew which commands were coming next. It laid them out in the appropriate order and spit them out as I needed it to. Now, yes, am I going to have to then do C:, backup, whatever I back up to, ADW, SQL in the city, .back. Am I going to have to type out that stuff? Yeah, sorry. You're still winning, right? Giant, giant win. It gets better. What about freeing the Prot cache? And what about not doing old school DBCC free Prot cache, open paren, close paren, and you nuke the entire cache for all the databases in all the world, and everyone's looking at you weird because now CPU's through the roof. What if you just want to clear out one database? Well, we've got new commands. Alter database, scoped configuration. Oh wow, look how much typing I just saved there. And by the way, syntax laid out correctly. Clear procedure cache. I can just select that one and off it goes. And I'm using all my keyboard to do those things. I could have typed little letters to make them happen. I was scrolling just to show you the other options that are available. And so I alter database, scope configuration, clear procedure cache, and we run this and it just clears the procedure cache out for one database, the database we're on now. I'm in love. I don't know how I get my work done without this tool, frankly. I know what alter database scope configuration clear procedure cache command is. I know how to type it out. Of course, I don't always remember, do I have to put in the scope configuration or can I put in alter database configuration? But with the help of prompt, I get that stuff done quickly and easily, and I'm lazy, so yay, I win. Now, what else are we driving for? We're driving for readable T-SQL. We want to be able to understand. Again, code is communication. So we want correct formatting. Correct formatting means all the commas go at the end. No, I'm kidding. Correct formatting does, though, mean that we decide on a mechanism that we're going to use to communicate. And it could be that we don't care. And frankly, I think that's the best approach. We don't care. I don't care if the commas are at the beginning or the end, because I've got a tool in place that lets me put them where I think they ought to go, whether it's at the end or the beginning. Big, big, big point. But more importantly, we've got this thing that's going to enforce a formatting that we can agree on. You know, where should we put line breaks? Where should we have from and to clauses and all this other stuff? And how should we lay all those out? We can decide on a team-based approach to a lot of this and lay it out and put it into one place, share it all amongst the team so that we're all doing it the same way. And if we have to make edits or changes, again, based on functionality, we can make those changes and share them all again, easily and quickly. Not moving things around, we all point to one storage location and everything works. We can also look at enforcing aliases and alias methodologies. Do you like having the as word in there, or do you feel like that's syntactical sugar? If you feel like it's syntactical sugar, turn it off, don't use it. If you feel like as is part of the command that defines what an alias should look like, hey, let's put that in there so everybody uses it every time. We also can do brackets. I was talking to people online that were saying, oh my God, I love brackets. We have to deal with lots and lots of databases that put spaces in the names, or we have to do formatting for reports, and we have to do all kinds of stuff that it just entails that we have to do brackets everywhere. And so to the point is like, even if we don't have to do them everywhere, we just end up doing them everywhere because it's easier. Cool. Or you're like me. I don't want brackets anywhere except places I have to have them, and then we'll put them in as appropriate. Well, prompt will let you decide which of those you want to do. It will figure out which places have to have brackets and leave them, or put them. Or you can have it just put brackets on everything, and it does it all automatically. Also, we talk about simple, silly stuff like object ownership. prompt actually will ensure that you've got object ownership built into the system. You're not tracking those things down. Now, a lot of us, I mean, everything's owned by DBO, so it's easy. But some of us are actually using schemas and tracking out the data that way. So let's play with this one too. There we go. Now, as far as readable T-SQL goes, nice little example I put together. It's nice and readable. Select A.sales order number, revision number, order quantity, C.name, 1.type, last name, 1A.account number, and B.star. Okay, whoever wrote this, we are going to get a stick. We are going to hit you on the head. I think we can all agree that they need a beating. From sales order A, join sales order B on B.sales order A is equal A.sales order A, any join production. Hey, at least they're using owners on the tables. Good gosh. As C. Oh, cool. They used as once, but not other places. That makes things so much easier. On C.product ID is equal to B.product ID left join. Oh no, we've got more in there. Hang on. As one. What? Who is doing this? Oh, and oh, by the way, left outer join and left join. So we've, yes, both syntactically correct, but help me. How do we understand what's going on? I mean, it's down to craziness like this that makes things hard. Great. And oh, by the way, just keep scrolling. That's good. And then where, hey, a total do is equal to, I can't stand it. So here's the deal. We're going to fix it. And I'm lazy. I feel so much better already. So, yeah, I know. If you've seen a single SQL prompt demo, you've seen this happen. But when you start to think about the level of complexity, when you start to add not a single table and let's format it and throw a couple of columns on, not 2 tables, 3 tables, when you start having 4, 5, 6, and they're all done in different ways, and you notice that it just gets harder and harder and harder. Now, there are some things that it didn't fix. It didn't differentiate between left join and left outer join. Okay, but it laid out almost everything else for me. And if I want to go in and start fixing stuff, for example, that cannot stand, will not stand, that is heinous, that is evil. So we're going to hit, F2. And when we hit F2, what it's going to allow us to do is say, okay, well, it's special offer, right? So we'll just say as SO. And you'll notice that every single place inside of the code that had that bracket 1 has now been replaced with the new SO command that I put in there. I'll hit enter, and it will clear it out, and won't have to worry about that anymore. And that includes up in the select list, at the table alias, and any other place that's being used. We can see the same thing again. We can pick another location. We don't have to go from the alias point. We can go from anywhere. Let's go from up here. Again, F2. C. Nope, can't be C because we're already using A, B, C because someone should be shot. So we'll use CU. Fine. Works well enough in this case. But now we're able to start cleaning up our code and able to make it more readable so we understand what's going on. We're able to see what's happening, that we've got a select star in there. And yeah, we could expand the wildcard or not. I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff you could do, but you get the idea. We're now arriving at a place where not only can we format the code so it's pretty, which is, frankly, I love, but we can control it in ways that allow our team to communicate better. Instead of naming things 1 and 1A, which communicate nothing, we were able to substitute with some other mechanism. Now, granted, maybe you don't like CU, maybe you don't like SO, maybe you'd rather have some more meaningful alias. That's great. Establish your own standards and follow them. I have no issue with that. But let's establish standards and follow them. That's my key. Now, if we scroll on down, let's write another query. Oh, that's a snippet, by the way, that I just used, and we'll get to what those are in a little bit. Let's do sales order header. sales order header. There we go. Join sales order detail on. Oh yeah, it actually looks at the tables, compares data types and column names, and generates a list of possible join criteria that you might want to use. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. Oops. It might help if you don't hit the wrong key. But I like that. And we'll just say where sales order ID is equal to 42. Cool. Now, why did I type all this out? One, show you just how easy it is to type things out. Two, I've got syntax to help. I've got this thing doing the join criteria for me. It's letting me know which columns I could use to join this stuff up. And yes, if I have to put in ands, I'm going to have to put in ands. It's not going to do everything for you automatically. The Mark I eyeball, the human brain still have to be engaged, but it's going to help you get that stuff done. Now, if we take a look at what I did, I want to focus in right here. We've got it so that it is actually doing aliases for me. I've set up the system so that it does the as automatically, and it's generating the aliases based off of the capitalization of the table itself. So it's recognizing that sales order header using camel case, SOH. Hey, it's taking that stuff and plugging it in and using it automatically. It did the same thing for the sales order detail. I now have arrived at consistent aliasing, all automatically, all easy. Hi, my name is Grant. I'm lazy as can possibly be. But if I get things going for me automatically, I do. Oh, and by the way, oops, bad keystroke, hang on. You do notice the little thing keeps popping up. Let's click on that. Oh, look at that. I get a listing of all the tables. I get the script that defines the table. I can see all of the foreign keys, all the unique indexes, the extended properties. They're all in there scrolling around. All that stuff. And by the way, yeah, I can copy it. All that stuff is just free. It's just all right there. That's just an added thing. It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about from the team-based standpoint. I'm just showing you some cool stuff. Now, brackets are heinous, but what if we want brackets? We can remove square brackets, or we can, where is it? Uh-oh. It's not showing, I think I did something wrong. Uh-oh. Hang on one second. Let's lay it out, see if that changes it. Nope. Well, it removes the square brackets. It can add them back in too. I forget how to do that right now. We'll get to that one later. Okay, cool. We've done the aliases, we've shown the object formatting, and right, finally, so when we start talking about the formatting, two things. First up, we have a folder. Now, granted, right now it's my local machine. Hang on, let me show you that. It's probably a little small. It's running on my local machine, so my C drive. Now, I'm not on a team doing my work with a team right now, so I've got everything stored locally, and I do it all locally. But if you're on a team, you simply put this in a shared location, and everybody points to the shared location, and off you go. You've got a single set of styles that you can use for your whole team. Now, the style I've got right now is aligned, but there are a whole series of styles that we've released for you. Collapsed shows things, all squished together. Comma before, which shows commas before. The default, indented, right aligned. Each of these styles can do different things. Or you can create a style. So, SQL in the city. You knew that's what I was going to name it, didn't you? So, create a style based on other styles, and then it just becomes fun. It's nothing but joy. How do you want to deal with tabs or spaces? Okay. How do you want to deal with line wraps? Do you want it to go off a particular thing? How do you want to do with semicolons? White space before the semicolon? New line before the semicolon? Do you want to have no semicolon? How do you deal with new lines? How do we deal with lists? How do we deal with parentheses? And by the way, each time we make a change, I'd like you to notice down below, we change the formatting of example code. either example code or the current query. So we can see the current query and the changes it's making in the code that we're formatting. So we can decide exactly how we want to lay out our stuff. We can set up casing. You know, it's very common. Most of us do reserve words in uppercase. Maybe you don't want to. Fine, change it in here. Take the reserved words, change them down to, you know, either leave as is so I can type it any way I want, or make it lowercase or lower camel case or upper camel case. You've got options. Again, options everywhere. And the same thing goes for all of it. And it isn't simply formatting. Don't think about it as just formatting. Think about the fact that this is DML and it's deciding where to place froms, where to place wheres, group bys. This actually affects mechanisms and methodologies within your code. Not just, you know, is it pretty or is it not pretty? Did I put a tab or a space? Did I put a line break in? No, 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 no. You're making decisions about how that code is laid out and how it's formatted and how it affects what you do. You've got control flow, including putting begin and end words. You've got control over CTEs. You've got decisions you can make on how variables work. Join clauses, insert statements, function calls, case statements, in clauses. I mean, the list is long, very long, all of which you get to control directly to determine exactly how within your team, within your organization, you want to manage this stuff. That is a great way to reduce friction. That's a great way to ensure that you're communicating through the code, I think. Now, consistency. This is where things get really fun. Now, you've already seen one snippet in action, SSF. Cool. What's that one? Select star from. Nice, easy, quick way to start typing your code because, frankly, the way T-SQL works, it's from these tables where this search criteria is, select these columns. I mean, that's more or less the way it works. So why not type it that way? That's what I do. I type SSF, so it does select star from for me. And then I start putting tables in. And then I go straight to the where clause. So I do my tables, I do my join criteria, I do my where clause. Awesome. Well, I've got all that set. I go back up to the select star and pick whatever columns is I'm selecting from. Cool. Done. Easy. But snippets are not just that. Snippets are all about communication. Snippets are a whole slew of functions. It's not just shortcuts, although the shortcuts are cool, but it's also standards, approaches, methodology. Let's take a look. You've already seen SSF, but I will show it again just in case it was slow. Instantly, select star from, and then we get to decide, you know, address. And notice the owner is put in automatically, person.address. As is put in because that's the style I've decided, and A because I've picked how I want it to do aliasing. What? Cool stuff, but that's nothing. CNI. CNI, create non-clustered index. Now, what's going on with it just popped into this stuff? Well, first off, we are using some little bits and pieces that are built into a Management Studio to allow us to control how this thing does stuff. So we actually are having it go to one spot first. It's going to the table name first. Why? Well, because if you're building an index, giving it an index name, that's not the important part. The important part is picking a table. So let's build it on the address. So person.address, notice, hit tab, it takes me to the next location. And what can I start doing there? Well, let's add in a city name. Now, yeah, I can add in a comma and put in other stuff too. And once I'm all done, hit enter, and it's got everything I need, hit tab, and I'll give my index a new name. SQL in the city index. Done. I can go into the with statement. By the way, did you notice the with statement was added with all the different functions on there? So you can say with include, with all this other stuff, and start typing other things in there. You can add the on file group, however you need it to go. All of that done automatically, simply, and it laid it out in such a way that I could use the existing functionality and the fact that we know how the syntax works to first identify which table I'm pulling from, and then once I've identified that table, be able to pull those columns. Cool beans. What about something like this? Create database. Awesome. Let's create a new database. What should we call it? SQL in the City 2, because I already have one called SQL in the City. But I want you to see something. I'm just going to hit enter. Not only did it provide SQL in the City, but it used that as the basis for the file names. Yeah, that's right. It used all those aliases and put them in all the same places so that, very similar to how we normally work, it laid it all out. Now, could you edit that and make it work more for what you're used to? Absolutely. But there we go. We've got the ability to create database with literally CDB and a database name. Cool. I like my job. Now, what about something like this? Here's some code. Now notice this little bit over here. When you highlight code, we can hit Control. Let me just zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see it. See this little thing over there? It's a drop down. We can click on it with a mouse, or we can press Control to see a list of actions. And we press Control, it pops up a little window. And if we go down to TC, what's that just done? It's taken the code I highlighted and put it inside of a try-catch. It put in the begin try, the end try, the begin catch, the end catch. It did all the coding for me. This is where we start to talk about how we set up standards within our organization. How do you want to do certain types of behaviors in your org? Can you put this stuff in and have it work for you in such a way that it smooths things out and gets you out the door quicker in your coding? And more accurate, and ensuring that the team is all doing it the same way. Yes. It's a huge, huge win. And now, let me just show you more, because it doesn't end there. If we take a look at the snippet manager, this is how you can go in there and start making snippets. Now, there's nothing to them really. You know, CL for create login. Cool. So it creates login. Oh, but by the way, look, it uses little cursor things. And what's the cursor? What's that little $ cursor $? Where do I put the cursor? Where do I start for putting this command together? So if you remember the CNI, create non-clustered index, we look down there, and it's create non-clustered index, index name, owner. Well, it doesn't have the cursor. Why did the cursor go there first? I don't know. Interesting. I thought it had the cursor there too. My mistake. But we can see how we can control each one of these things. And if you go in and start editing them, you can edit your own, create your own, and modify your own on the fly. Cool beans. All right. All right, that's not all. As if you thought that tool was already helping your team out, that tool still has more to help your team with. First up, we now have static code analysis. Static code analysis is the ability to go in and look for common bad code smells, common practices, common mispractices. We've got a gigantic list of them, and we apply them all to your code. I've got them turned off currently because I want to turn them on for a big reveal. By default, they're on, and they'll be helping you out as you go. But I've got them turned off just so I could screw things up, and then we'll go back and look at what I messed up. Sound like a plan? We are getting ready to introduce brand spanking new functionality. I was supposed to demo it today, but it ain't done. List of issues. We're going to have this mechanism come out. They want to get it right. I've seen it working. It's really cool, but it's going to be not simply having what issues are bad, but also bring it up as a report that you can then export out to whatever you need it to export out to, or use it to navigate through giant scripts and find the exact points at which there are these code problems that you want to fix. And finally, we get to share all these amongst the team. So if your team decides that, for whatever reason, select star is acceptable, you can turn that off. The whole team will have it turned off, and you don't have to worry about it going into the future. Cool stuff. Let's see it in action. So what we have to do is go back into here, in here, and enable code analysis. Now what's going to happen is you're going to notice over here on the right, let me just zoom into that, I've got all these little green bits over here. Now this is normal functionality within Management Studio, that yellow and green there. And that's, something that I changed and saved. That's just something that I changed. And I haven't hit save yet, so there's, inconsistencies in what's going on. And yeah, if I want to save before I close, probably a good idea. But you'll notice the other dark green ones over there. Now those, let's scroll up and find one. Those are identifying possible code analysis issues. Now if we hover over it, zoom in just a little bit, there should be no use statements in batch. Now, we can argue whether or not that's a good rule, but it's a standard rule and it's a good approach. Maybe you shouldn't have use statements in batches. If you click on it, a little idea button opens up here. And if we click on that, it opens up a window and it gives us additional information. There should be no use rule. It is unusual to need to jump between database contacts in the middle of a batch, though it is allowed. Now, this is a rule we could argue whether or not in our circumstances under my system, should we have this or not? Good question. But that's something you guys decide on your team. But that's a good rule, probably in most circumstances. You can, from here, disable the rule, or you can go online and we've got additional documentation as to why you have these rules, mechanisms for getting out of it, and all the things that you can do to get around it. I'm not going to go online to it now because it's just, we only have so much time and I want to show you more toys. Notice, create procedure. Now I just did this for you guys. It does not have a begin and end statement inside of the create procedure. Now again, is that a problem on stored procedures? Not necessarily, but it's a common code practice to not have those things. Again, we can click on it and it will give us more information. The begin and end block is optional for stored procedure use, though it is mandatory for multi-line user-defined functions. To avoid confusion, it's best to be consistent. I love that word. So you guys get the idea, yes? And we can keep going. There's other ones. It's another use one. Let's go find, where is it? Aha, that's my baby. What's that one say? Unqualified column name. Column name should be qualified by the owner. This thing's unqualified, so it's ambiguous. You could hit issues. There could be problems down the road. We can get those things fixed. Now let's go in to SQL prompt and let's go to manage code analysis rules. And so you can see that I can, first up, right at the top, I already said this, but let me just show you. There's where the file can be located. Again, I'm operating on my own, so I've got it all locally. But if you're on a network, you could have it all out in a file share, and then you all are working off the same code analysis rules all the time. But I can go in here and I can pick and choose which ones I like. A top without order by. Well, personally, query performance tuning, I would rather see that than not, so I would rather leave that on personally. But asterisk in a select list. Much to Hugo's chagrin, I have a tendency to do this when I'm writing demos. So maybe I think that's a fine coding practice. I don't think it's good for coding practice, but maybe I think it's a fine coding practice, so I'm going to turn it off. I can go through here, turn these things on, turn them off, adjust it the way I need it to. Now, it's not just best practices like delete statement without a where clause, all that fun stuff. It's not deprecated syntax rules where I'm doing DBCC index defrag, drop index of two-part column names. It's execution rules. Did I deallocate the cursor? Did I void use of this? There's other rules, unqualified column names, which we already saw. I'm using index hints. Now, maybe I use index hints a lot. Maybe I use index hints only a little. But I've got the ability to track whether or not I'm using them. Table hints, query hints. Set no count off is in use. Scripting rules, found a to-do comment. What's that? Yeah, so if I want to put to-do comments through my code so I can go and track them down later, I can actually have this thing go, hey, by the way, you've got a to-do comment, go in there and fix it. Great way to track stuff, and manage your rules. And then we've got style rules, old style top, non-ANSI, bang equals, all kinds of great stuff that's going to walk you through and ensure that your team is consistent in the code and the methodologies that it uses. So, in theory, we start applying all these things, and we get to the place where we're writing consistent code, we're writing accurate code, we've got the syntax correct, we're formatting in a way that's consistent and universal across our environment so we're able to communicate better. We've got a set of standards that we're enforcing that we're all using in the exact same way at the exact same time. What are we going to arrive at? Well, we're going to reduce the conflict. We're going to limit the friction. We're not going to be a bunch of guys with sticks banging each other on the head. It's not going to look like that. That's going to really result in improved productivity. You're going to get things done faster. If nothing else, you will write code faster. And hey, let's face it, fewer keystrokes, more code out the door, that's a win. And by the way, unless they're counting keystrokes, and I know places do that still to this day, and it's weird, but you know, if you're in that situation, don't buy this tool and get a new job. You will also get better code quality because you're going to, again, have more consistency, not simply on formatting, but also on naming, aliases, and all the rest. And we're going to have more consistency on the standards. And so the whole idea is, oh, wait, gosh, I forgot. By the way, if nothing else, hang on. Let me close Management Studio. No, I don't need to save anything. Oh, crud, I didn't save anything. Okay, no big deal. Let's go back into Management Studio. And I promised I'd make it run faster, and I didn't. So product manager's probably going to be mad at me. It's coming up. Be patient. It's worth the wait, I promise. I know, she's mad at me now. It's my machine, guys. It's nothing else. Weird. Improve your team's code has come up. And oh, by the way, it's not saved. Oh, you mean the fact that I just wrote a whole bunch of code and didn't save it and closed it and now it's back? Is that thanks to Redgate software? Yes. Yes, it is. It's called tab recovery and it saves your bacon. Want to see something else that saves your bacon? Hang on. Let me scroll down. Where have I got it? And yeah, every bit of that stuff I didn't. Here we go. Now let me tell you a story about this. Before I do it, I got to tell you a story because this is funny. I'm working on a book called Query Performance Tuning. It's going to be out in a few weeks. It's not the Execution Plans book, which is also going to be out in a few weeks. But the Query Performance Tuning book, I'm working with Joe Sack. Great guy, genius, amazing person, works for Microsoft, and he's just glorious. I mean, he's my hero. I say it all the time. Joe is my hero. And he sent me an email. By the way, you missed one thing you really should mention, is that the new Management Studio will prevent you from deleting data by accident, because the new Management Studio has this screenshot that he sent me saying, SQL prompt execution warning. You're about to execute a delete statement without a where clause on person address. Do you want to execute anyway? Or no, I want to, don't show this message ever again. Don't bother me with that kind of trivial stuff. I want to remove data willy-nilly without plan or let. No, I don't want to execute. Yeah, in fact, Joe sent me a thing saying, hey, this Redgate functionality is new in Management Studio. I thought that was funny. I had to share. And he gave me the permission to, because Joe is my hero and he's really amazing. Yeah, so we're going to help your team. I promise you we're going to help your team. So hopefully we talked about the goals that we talked about, that we're going to do ways to get you more consistent code, to make things easier to read, that you're going to be able to communicate through your code in better ways because it's going to be more consistent, because you're going to hit standards instead of just doing things willy-nilly all over the place. And you want to arrive at the place where you've got a very high functioning team, and lots of points for people who know what this is, and if you don't know what it is, go look it up. But you want to get to the point where you've got a team that functions like these guys, or like Redgate Software or Man City. Not so much like the Pats this year. Anyway, that's it. My name is Grant Fritchey, and I think I am done. Are there any questions that came up during the session? Nope. Cool. All right, then. Do we have any kind of wrap-up, Annabelle? I get to close it out? Awesome. Hey, this has been SQL in the City streamed. We really appreciate you guys sitting through it all. And we're going to be coming back in the fall, 2 more, one in the fall, one in the winter. And there's going to be a lot more fun, a lot more education, a lot more stuff done the Redgate way. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.